Hey, guess what? I can't have kids anymore.
What? Me neither. Let's do this dance.
Yeah!
Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to this week's Life in a Fantasy Football World. So excited you could join us. We have a fun-filled show today. More of that fun that we've come to love so much. As always.
It's too much fun.
You could say that it's too much fun, but I think they actually made it one of the amendments in the Constitution that we must have a certain amount of fun each week. So we're
definitely pushing the limits.
We are. Well, nonetheless, here we are. We're gonna talk about some interesting things today. I'm not gonna spoil any of it. Maybe just a little bit. We're gonna finish our running back rankings. Hopefully, get the top 25, maybe a little more out of it. Maybe talk about a couple of our favorites. We're going to talk about two more teams in the NFL. We're going to go over the Packers and the Lions. That's very exciting. We actually have our first question to discuss from Instagram. And I don't know what else to get into, except for maybe I should induce my...
Induce me? What am I? Pregnant?
I don't know. All I know is that you're a cocaine-fueled curmudgeon, and here he is, Mr. Westbore.
I understand I put on a few pounds, you jerk, but you don't gotta say stuff like that. Hi. Thanks for the introduction, Caleb, as usual. Just a reminder, we appreciate you listening, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at LifeInAFFW. We appreciate that very much. We got a lot of cool things going on for episode 10. Big deal. Very exciting stuff. So let's get into a little bit of a news situation.
Oh, it's just some minor things that we should talk about in the news. Maybe I'll, put in some sad music here or something, but Doug Baldwin, and I put, quote, retires in our show notes because he kind of retired via Twitter. But as we received news over the last couple of weeks, he was having some injury problems, and then the Seahawks actually released him and said, "Goodbye, Doug. I'm sorry, but this is the end of your road." And maybe it's for a good reason then that he is deciding to leave the NFL altogether, at least for the foreseeable future. He's had some pretty serious injuries to deal with.
Yeah, it's a shame because Doug Baldwin was a pretty dang good receiver out of Stanford, undrafted, and he ended up putting together, eight or nine seasons. He almost had 500 receptions, 7,000 receiving yards, and almost 50 touchdowns. I think that's pretty dang good for a guy that's under 6 foot and wasn't drafted by anybody. Not Hall of Fame stats, but still, he's going to be an all-time Seahawk. So congratulations on a good career. It just sucks when it gets cut short. He just turned 30, so
yeah,
it kind of stinks. But obviously the Seahawks have moved on. Drafted Metcalf, so Baldwin's going to have to be a little cheerleader this year.
Yeah, and we'll find out in the next week or two if, we're going to move Tyler Lockett up our rankings a little bit, where we see Metcalf because of this. But, yeah, I can imagine them bringing in some more wide receivers to try out in this case. But Kyle Rudolph, unfortunately, trade talks have started because contract talks ceased with the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, the Minnesota Vikings drafted Irv Smith, and for good reason. As you talked about last week, Kyle Rudolph has been a serviceable tight end. I can't tell you how many places that I've seen people list him as a top 5 fantasy tight end going into this year, and
That's me drinking water and spitting it out right on my computer.
So there's another guy, some other guys on Instagram, and I didn't really get into an argument, but I said a bit of a irritated message saying, "Listen, are you kidding with Kyle Rudolph here?" Because I don't know. I understand the guy has some talent. His best year, he still didn't even have 900 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. Decent year for a tight end, especially looking at a year like last year, but he's never been this superstar tight end, certainly not enough to rank him in the top 5. And why is this year any different, especially with drafting a tight end as high as they did. And I don't know. No matter where he goes, if he went to a place like New England or something and they really, he was going to be their tight end one, I could see some more value there. But it's going to be hard for me to set him in my top 10, let alone top 5.
It's not going to be hard for me to put him in my top 10. It's going to be mother-loving impossible because this guy is such an old-school tight end. Good blocker. But, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at his stats right now. You take that 800-some yard season away, he's your classic tight end who gets about 500 yards a season with about 5 touchdowns. And now that the fact that they're modernizing that offense, putting basically the modern-day NFL's equivalent of a tight end, which is just a big receiver, in Irv Smith. They drafted him with a second-round pick, I think. Yeah, it was a second-round pick. They didn't bring him in to learn from Kyle. He's going to get in there, and he's going to take snaps from Kyle Rudolph. And if they don't trade Kyle Rudolph's basically going to be the blocking tight end, I believe. I don't believe anyone would talk this guy up in fantasy. He wasn't draftable before Irv Smith. He sure as H is not draftable now.
Yeah, I mean, in 16 games to get 500 yards in a season, you have to get just over 30 yards a game. That's how many yards he's averaging per game, essentially, to get that 500 yards in a season. That's you don't. I mean,
he's not a bad player.
No, absolutely.
But he's just not. When it comes to fantasy, he is not someone that you want to mess around with.
Yeah, I mean, late rounds, get him off the waivers, something like that. Okay.
No, not even that.
All right. Next, just another small note. Manuel Sanders, again, news came out that his injury likely keep him out till at least mid-July, which is not great for him. I mean, it's good that they're taking all the time they need, and he's a seasoned enough player that he probably doesn't need a lot of practice time, but it is with a new quarterback in Joe Flacco. They really have to work on rhythm and timing. So his initial week 1 value to me goes down the longer he stays out of practice, because that's the longer he doesn't have that practice with Joe Flacco, and the more that other wide receivers on that team, their stock goes up, at least for the beginning of the season. When Emmanuel Sanders is really on, he's a really good wide receiver, and I think he's going to have really good value, but hopefully that injury stops nagging him.
It's a nagging injury.
Yeah, we don't like that.
But, I mean, I guess recently he's been running around in cleats, working on cuts and lateral movements, which is a promising sign. I mean, he's right on the course of where he wants to be to return. The nice thing about this is Sanders is not a young guy, and neither is Flacco. They're veterans that know how to play football. So, I mean, it's not going to take long for them to sort of jab.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too worried about this.
If anything, his value falls a little bit, and you can get him for cheap.
Oh, I feel like we'll be addressing this a little later in the show.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Mark Walton has signed with Miami. I like when we go on our rants that neither of us actually... the audience is assuming that we have some idea that we know what we're doing with that part, and we don't.
No.
We're just going.
We currently don't know what we're doing.
Mark Walton signed in Miami. Surprising to me, specifically for his 3 arrests. I don't think they need help at the running back. I mean, they're just... he's not exactly a great running back by any means. Maybe he could be better. So just a strange, odd signing. Just throwing that in there because I'm a Miami fan, and if nobody else cares, then that's great.
I've been praising Miami for their offseason moves, some of the talent. I feel like it's going to be unlocked with the new coach. Oh, but this is where I'm going to bust on them. This is the stupidest thing they could do right now. I mean... 3 arrests, you've got some character issues. I understand when the talent outweighs the issues, it's worth the risk. You're basically signing this guy who had 14 carries for 34 yards, didn't even average 2.5 yards a carry. You got talented Drake. What's that other guy's name? Balaj or something.
Kalen Balaj.
Yeah. I mean, he looked like a promising running back. Why are you doing this?
They also drafted 2 running backs.
I feel like he's not going to be on the final roster, honestly, if I'm being honest with you. He's not going to be on the final roster, I wouldn't think. But the whole move, man, just for PR purposes, what are you doing? I mean, it's not like you went after Kareem Hunt. You went after Mark Walton.
I guess I'd have to see if there's...
First foolish move of the offseason.
Yeah, it's very odd, but whatever. I mean, we're not part of that coaching staff. Maybe somebody knows him on the team and is like, hey, let's give this guy a shot. You know, he could have some talent. You never know when you find those diamonds in the rough, but you have some good talent on your team. Don't mess with that jive.
Don't be so stupid, Miami.
All right. Pew, 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 pew. I guess I'm shooting
You're not
blanks.
Even hitting me. Right back at you, buddy.
So, this is great. In the past year, both myself and my compadre, Mr. Westbore, have both gotten vasectomies because we're smart people.
Sterile.
Yeah, and we also ate our children. So we made sure that we didn't have anything to deal with in that case.
But that wasn't our fault. You try veal. You said a baby cow tastes pretty good. Your mind starts wondering. It's just got out of hand quick.
Tender meat. So what can we say?
So sick.
So in honor of our vasectomies, that sounded like I was super Southern right there. In honor of our vasectomies.
So we went over to the barn and got some vasectomies. Now we can't have no more kids.
I said, shoot, bartender, 2 vasectomies. And what do you know? Snip, snip.
I said, Cletus, bring those scissors over here.
So looking at this, in honor of our vasectomies, we're each going to mention a few players, and we'll be a little quicker about it, but that either produced last year and are expected to produce this year, and maybe we disagree, or...
How many do you have?
I wrote 4 down, but I don't, depends on what we get to. Or 4 players that are projected to be good this year, and again, we just may happen to disagree.
Per usual. Classic us.
I'm just going to give you names and let you all wonder why, for the rest of your lives, why I would ever choose that. So,
quick, go.
All right.
Michael Jordan.
Magic
Johnson.
Michael Jordan's trying to come back into the NBA, and I just don't see now. You want to start us off?
Sure. I'm going to start off with a guy that you've already mentioned, Emmanuel Sanders.
Okay, I could have guessed that one, and that's the only one.
Well, I didn't want to do some obvious ones. I will be doing some obvious ones, but Emmanuel Sanders, a little more sneakier. Last year, 71 catches, 868 yards, 4 touchdowns. Tore his ACL week 13, okay? So those stats might not pop out at you, but if he was on that same pace, which I think he would be, he'd have ended the season with 95 catches, almost 1,200 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's pretty good stats. Why I'm a little cautious about him, why I don't think he'll be able to reproduce what he did last year, Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, first-round pick Noah Fant, all these young offensive weapons. Your quarterback, you did not improve. You went from blah to blah. He's not a young pup coming off an injury. He's 32, coming off a torn ACL, and he's a guy that relies on quickness and cuts to get open. But coming off a torn ACL, 32 years old, I think by the end of the season, if he's on your roster, you're not starting him at all. I think Sutton and Hamilton and Font are going to really be taking the workload over in Denver. So I don't want to take too much time with that. Here, shoot it back to you. Hey, blank style.
I like that one because it is, when you do have a guy that old and new quarterback and missing a lot of time in the offseason, it just points the arrow down. Sorry. Arrow down. I'm writing it down right now. My first one, we'll also discuss a little bit later when we get to rankings, but and we'll also discuss it in the team breakdown. But Aaron Jones would be the first guy that I'm going to say, listen, he came in hot last year, as everybody thought, here he comes. This is Aaron Jones' time to shine, averaged really high yards per carry. But look, again, I'm not going to get into this that much because we're going to talk about it later, but the coaching changes is not in his favor. They've talked about an RBBC in that committee. Jamal Williams is still a decent back. There's a lot of reasons why he's going to take carries. If you're not devoting all your time to Aaron Jones and you have a quarterback that just loves to throw the ball and not hand the ball off, and where Aaron Jones is being ranked right now, I mean, I think we have him lower than most of the industry, but I think he's like top 17, top 16 within that range of running backs. And I just don't see it with a lot of the talent that is based in a single back. Even Derrick Henry. I mean, dare I say, I might be more appealing for Derrick Henry than Aaron Jones. So
you shut that mouth.
I'm trying. It sounds dirty coming out of my mouth. And then here's your blank. Get it.
Very good one, actually. When your new coach comes out and basically says it's a running back by committee, that's something a little scary. So not high. I had him last year. He was good, but I don't like him this year. Okay, on to a little more of an obvious one. Todd Gurley. Now, obviously, he's not going to reproduce what he did last year. I don't think he's even going to get near it. I'm just going to go over the obvious things. 4 carries versus the Saints, 11 touches in the Super Bowl 2 weeks later.
It's not a lot.
His injury, what do we even freaking know about it, huh? It could be serious. It could be It could be previewing something even leading up to more of a major injury this year. The Rams could maybe limit him first half of the year so they could have him the whole season. I don't know. They traded up in the 3rd round for Darrell Henderson. I mean, they didn't trade up just to get a decent backup running back. Honestly, I'm not saying Todd Gurley's undraftable, but I would not. I know he's not going to be on my teams because I wouldn't spend a top 3-round pick on him just because I don't think he's going to be doing anything. This injury could be not a career ender, but his career could have peaked last year, and he'll just be tailing off. This could be a serious injury. I don't like where it's headed. He's a very talented guy, but if his knees has arthritis or anything more serious than that, you can't do that in the NFL as a running back. So
yeah, I get the feeling we both don't want to rank him as high as we do, but because he's such a talented guy, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
Next, I got Alshon Jeffrey. I've heard too many people say that he is going to be a surprise receiver that you can get at a steal in the 3rd, 4th round. And he's had a couple of decent seasons filled with up and down games. And does he have potential to be a number 1 on that team? I guess I just don't have enough faith in Carson Wentz. I think that Zach Ertz is going to be the main target, and he's definitely going to be the main target in that offense. And Alshon Jeffrey is just not that good to me to take it on. We saw what he was not able to do. Maybe it was because of the team when he was with Chicago, and he's had, again, some success with the Philadelphia Eagles, but I'm going to stop there. Alshon Jeffrey, I just get a feeling that he's going to be a little floppy.
Yeah, super floppy, because his stats weren't bad last year. He was Nick Foles' favorite target. When Carson Wentz quarterbacking, he turns into a ghost sometimes. So, yeah, I don't like him. This one might sting you a little bit, Caleb, but I'm going to do it under 30 seconds. George Kittle.
Oh, you don't like him, eh? Get out.
I love him, but I don't think he'll be reproducing those stats last year. Want a couple reasons why?
Yeah.
Sure. Jalen Hurd, Deebo Samuel, 2 of their top picks in the draft, wide receivers. A healthy Marquise Goodwin. Dante Pettis, Matt Breida, receiving running back. Jordan Matthews. All these young weapons they're going to have in that offense. And you're going to have Garoppolo back. You're not going to have Mullins, who relied on Kittle so much because he was very inexperienced, so he used a safety valve. You're going to have Garoppolo, who's not afraid to air it out. Also, this little gem of a stat, 20% of George Kittle's receiving yards last year, Caleb, came on 4 plays. I don't see that happening again. Top 3 tight end? Definitely. Round 3 tight end? I don't think so. Back to ya.
That does sting. I love him so much. But the things you say are hurtful, and it's like,
It's because I don't want him to hurt you, Caleb.
Yeah.
So I'm just warning you.
I am scared of it because he was just so good last year that you're like, you're following the production and it's recency bias, right? But it does happen with tight ends. With dominant tight ends, they usually duplicate their production. Maybe he established himself as a dominant tight end, or you're right. Maybe there's just too many weapons now.
Well, like I said, I do think he's going to be a top tight end. It's just that those stats won't be reproduced from last year. So don't expect 1,300 yards. So
all right.
That's all I got to say about that.
Oh, okay. I'm going to talk about a Sammy Watkins. And why?
Not bad.
Because it's Sammy Watkins. Do I have to say anything else? I know. He's this fast guy. He's like, he came into Buffalo. He's ultra fast and whatever. What happened there? Nothing. He comes into Kansas City, and he had maybe a couple of good games, but were you even streaming him most of the time? No. I understand. Now Tyreek Hill's gone. You're going to have to rely on somebody like Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins is not Tyreek Hill. Sammy Watkins is more like, who is the wide receiver that went to the Patriots?
Give me some details.
He went to the Patriots. He was on Kansas City a couple of years ago. He was kind of like a wide receiver 3. He's pretty good. I can't remember. Anyway, that's how important this guy is to me. To me, he's got like the third receiver on the team compared to Kelsey, whoever is the running back at that time, and then maybe Sammy Watkins. If not, they just drafted this other guy who's kind of like a Tyreek Hill light in that case. And I just don't think Sammy Watkins is going to give you draftable value as the Kansas City Chiefs' #1 target.
Sammy. Okay, well, let's stay in Kansas City, could we, Caleb, for my final gentleman?
If you say Travis Kelce, I'm going to punch you in the mouth.
So, last year, I produced a son. This year, I no longer can do that. Last year, Patrick Mahomes produced an MVP season. This year, he will not get close to it. You know why? 2 words for you. Kareem Hunt. The 11 games Mahomes played with Kareem Hunt, he threw 3.5 touchdowns a game on average, and only 2 games out of the 11 were under 300 yards. After Kareem Hunt got cut, and this is including playoffs, Mahomes averaged almost a full touchdown less a game, and 6 out of his 7 games were under 300 yards. So let me recap those stats that are going to blow your friggin' mind, because I know you're still processing it. 3.5 touchdowns a game passing with Kareem Hunt, 2.3 without him. 2 games under 300 yards out of 11 weeks. Then only had 1 game the following 7 games that he went over 300 yards. This guy was pretty darn dependent on Kareem Hunt. He's still going to be awesome. He'll still probably throw for 30-some touchdowns. He ain't throwing for 50, and he ain't throwing for 5,000 yards either. I like Patrick Mahomes a lot, but do not expect near the production that he gave you this year. Especially, and this isn't even considering the whole Tyreek Hill mess. I'm just going off of Kareem Hunt. You factor in Tyreek Hill, this could get messy. I'm throwing the mess your way.
He's got letdown written all over him. He's sitting there. He's like, I'm going to have another kid. Yeah, I can have a kid. Then he goes to the doctor. You can't have any kids. And he's like, what? I'm not spending a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round pick on a quarterback in general. But yeah, when you have a guy that's this radical that just changes the league and comes in by storm last year, and how can you do that again, especially when you lose so many of your key pieces? So thank you.
I mean, his gunslinger mentality will make him a #1 quarterback. I just don't know if he'll be the overall number one quarterback with
Right.
all these weapons leaving. So
Don't draft him 1, 2, or 3 because you'll still get a top 10, but you're not. But imagine what you can get with one of those picks.
yeah, imagine. Let your mind
Yeah,
run wild.
you could make a mistake on somebody else instead.
Yeah, go, ha, fool.
My last one, Mr. Eric Ebron. This is more of just like a PSA, okay? I don't care if it's Andrew Luck, who happens to love tight ends, but you cannot expect him to catch a dozen touchdowns on a dozen receptions, okay? It's just not going to happen. His touchdown to reception ratio was unreal. He had, 2 different games where he had 3 touchdown catches. And you're just not going to get that from Eric Ebron. I think that you have their other tight end, whose name is escaping me. I think you have him back and healthy this year from the start. Jack Doyle from the start of the season. Andrew Luck already loves Jack Doyle a lot. And although he probably likes Eric Ebron a lot, they're going to play a lot more switching out on tight ends or 2 tight end packages. And they have a full, healthy running back core, a very healthy wide receiver core that's been expanded upon. Just tone down your Eric Ebron excitement, because it's not going to be the same Eric Ebron a year ago. He'll be better than he was at Detroit, but he's not going to produce top 5 tight end appeal in this case. So get out of here.
You don't like those touchdown dependent guys. They're really risky.
It is. It's great when you have him, but even people that had him last year were like, he can't do it again this week, and they would sit him, and then he would do it again somehow. So terrible. All right. Let's see if we can finish up some rankings.
Right back at ya.
Smack me thrice and hand me to me mummy. It's rankings time.
A Mr. Gibbs reference.
No one gets it.
That's top sound right there.
It's our second series of our running back rankings. Thank you for anybody who listened last week. We went over our top 10 running back rankings where we had Saquon Barkley, Elliott, McCaffrey, Kamara, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, James Conner, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon. And now we have the pleasure of getting into, we'll see how many we can get through, but we're going to start at number 11, who Wes has him at 11. I happen to have him at 13, but he falls as our consensus number 11. So, Wes, since you have him higher, I'll hand the reins to you.
Yeah. We talked about Damian Williams a couple weeks ago, and I talked about just how much I dig him. In short, someone's got to pick up the slack for Hill and Hunt. Hunt caught a lot of balls last year. Damian Williams has that ability. He's not a Kareem Hunt, but he definitely has the ability to put some touchdowns up. And I think we said it before, regardless of who the running back is, when they're in a high-powered offense, you definitely want to pay attention to them. So I feel like since the running back position really wasn't addressed in the draft, especially higher up for the Chiefs, I think it's safe to say Damian Williams, with a few carries stolen by Carlos Hyde, is a running back that I'll be very intrigued by. I think he'll continue to rise, especially with the Chiefs not taking a top pick on a running back, but I still think you can get good value if he falls to maybe the second, third round.
Absolutely. I do think it's very important, though, that if you get Damian Williams, hopefully we have a clear idea of who his handcuff is going to be. If that is Carlos Hyde, try to grab Carlos Hyde as well. Number 12. It's actually, we both have him ranked at 12. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Todd Gurley. Man, it's so sad that he's dropped this far. It'd just be so nice if coaches would just tell us what's going on, like what's going through their heads.
You have any idea what's on the line? We have a trophy on the line.
They essentially drafted his replacement already, using a very early pick on a running back, which is strange. Does it mean that there's an injury that they believe is going to be nagging for a long time? Now, maybe they're just being that careful because they're trying to make a Super Bowl run, and so they just want as many offensive powerhouses as possible. So if he does go down, that could be. But you know what? If Todd Gurley slips to the second round for you and you can grab him there, I don't blame you for a second for wanting to grab him because he might still finish as an RB1 easily, with the potential that if he plays all year and he's healthy, he could be a top 5 back. So it's very tricky. But number 12, Tadmias Gurliamanias. It's his name.
Don't say anus on the podcast, please.
Whatever.
Ultimate risk reward right here. You want to risk it, and like you said, he turns out to be the Todd Gurley we know. If he didn't have this injury, he would be up there. Would you take him or Saquon? I mean, he's definitely top 2 running back if he was healthy. The thing is that big question mark. We don't know. The rookie running back coming in, is that a sign of things to come? Or like you said, are they just looking for a C.J. Anderson to back him up? All those questions come into, do I want to take him with my first-round pick? And I think risk is too high. You want to, in the later rounds, you want to make risky picks, see if it pays off. You don't want to pass on some surefire guys for a guy that might not play half the season or a guy that will play the whole season, but in a total 50-50 split with a rookie. So, yeah, I like you even said, like I feel like he's even ranked higher for you and me just because of his name. Like, you take the name away, I don't even think he's in my top 15, 20.
Yeah, it's like I said, that's really sad. It's really hard.
The fact that it's Todd Gurley.
That's it.
It's like you almost feel like, oh, God, like, am I going to rank him over? Am I going to rank him behind Marlon Mack?
Essentially 2 back-to-back
like
number 1 running back finishes. It's...
Yeah.
Ugh.
Ugh.
So Marlon Mack, the guy you just said, comes in at 13. You have him all the way back at 17. I am a little bit more bullish on him. I have him in my top 10 at number 9. So I'll talk about him a little bit. Marlon Mack, his success to me, what I'm foreseeing, is based on the fact he's coming in this is his 3rd year, I believe. He's coming into the season. The Colts' offensive line is unbelievable. It was unbelievable last year. They only improved upon it even more. They expect, as long as they're healthy, to be extremely stout up front to be able to make a lot of holes. Another one of those teams, really, whoever the starting running back is, I'll probably want a piece of the running back. You saw that at last year as they had different times. Marlon Mack had success. Nyheim Hines had success. They had a lot of different running backs that had success. I think Marlon Mack has enough talent to finish as an RB1. Maybe not as high as 9, but I like him there compared to whoever else is there. So if you can get him back at the start of the 2nd round, I'd be happy there because I think he has that potential to finish as an RB1.
Yeah, I actually like Marlon Mack. It's almost like an argument you just made for me. Last year, you had Hines, Jordan Wilkins had some good games. Marlon Mack had some, it's a crowded backfield, and they just signed Spencer Ware. I'm believing less and less that Marlon Mack is going to be the workhorse. You have 4 talented backs. That's 3 more than I like when I draft a guy. So I think he has the talent to be a top 10 running back. I just don't think he'll have the opportunity to be a top 10 running back.
Why can't these teams play like the Cowboys and the Giants and just have one really good guy and a bunch of guys that are just no?
I know, it's so simple.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Stop having so much talent on your team. God dang it.
Knock it off.
Number 14, Devontae Freeman. Happy to see him traveling up the ranks here. We got a lot of guys that are going to be a lot higher than a lot of people. Wes, you have him at 13. I have him at 14, so we're very close here. But I'll let you talk a little bit about Mr. Freeman.
Yes, Devontae Freeman. I like him because before the injury, he was pretty much a touchdown maniac. I mean, not insane amount, but I think people forget the workhorse. He was the highest paid running back there for a short period of time. He had consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, 14 touchdowns, 13 touchdowns, and then injuries started to strike him. I mean, he's a really good running back. He's still 27 years old. He's still got a lot of tread on those tires. Tevin Coleman's not there anymore. If he can stay healthy, I mean, this guy was a first-round running back in fantasy football. If he can stay healthy, I think he returns to that first-round status, and you can definitely get him cheaper than first-round pick. So I like him.
Yeah.
What can I say, Caleb? I like him.
Listen,
Sue me.
I don't want to say that he's Adrian Peterson, but I want to look at what happened to Adrian Peterson a few years ago. Adrian Peterson obviously went down with a bad ACL tear. Next year, came back. Nobody liked him because of the possibility of what happened. Then he came back and ran for almost 20, or he had almost a total combined 2,100 yards from scrimmage. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but guys can come back from injury, talented guys, as long as they're fully healthy and come back and really dominate. So yes, this does depend on a lot on him being fully healthy, but both of us, I think we're in agreement that if he's healthy, he's going to be a dominant force and used on a very high-powered offense. So, Kerryon Johnson, it makes me sad. I have Kerryon Johnson back at 17. You have him up at 14, but he's our consensus 15. Again, a bunch of numbers mixed together somehow make that number. Wes, what made you rank him so much higher than I expected?
I know. You love this guy.
I do. I think he's a great player.
How the turntables
Turned. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Let's just take a pause and a little break. I got some facts I can hit you with Kerryon. Do you want me to save it for the Detroit Lions segment, or do you want me to hit him with you right now?
Now, because we're doing player profiling now, that's team profiling.
You got it. Kerryon Johnson. This guy got put on IR at week 10. Okay, if he'd have played a full season with how he was averaging it, he'd have rushed for over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 51 catches. Very nice, especially for a rookie season. They just have a new OC, Darrell Bevel or something.
Darrell Bevel.
I don't know. Yeah, all I know about the guy is 6 seasons he was the coordinator for top 5 rushing offenses, like Adrian Peterson in Minnesota, Marshawn Lynch in Seattle. This guy likes to run it, and he likes to run it a lot. Matt Patricia, if he had it his way...
we should have saved that part for the team breakdown.
Well, I'm just saying,
yeah.
Matt Patricia's his whole philosophy is tough defense, good running game. I don't buy that they're going to limit Kerryon Johnson as much as we think. At first, I was really turned off by it, but now I'm thinking the guy. When you have someone with so much talent, you can only take so many carries away from him. And I think this guy's super talented. I think the Detroit Lions. What was that guy's guard name? Ragnall and the tackle Decker. They're really improving that offensive line. I think Kerryon Johnson, especially where he's at right now in drafts, I think he could possibly be a steal, and at the end of the year, prove to be a top 10 running back. So that's why I like him better than you, Caleb.
Giggity. No, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear somebody else's confidence, because sometimes I think I'm a little bit too high on players already. But I do like Kerryon, and I think I mentioned it before earlier in a different episode that I'm going to do everything I can to have shares of him on my teams, and I'm still going to do that.
Yeah, maybe listen to your heart once in a while.
I listen to my heart, but it turns out to be just gas, so I didn't know what to do.
Just listen to your farts once in a while.
Listen to your farts.
When
it's telling you to. Nick Chubb comes in at number 16. Happens to be that we both ranked him at 16, so that's where he lands.
That's a special moment for us.
It is. And I think a lot of this, to me, is based on just how he'll produce for the first half of the season. We don't know. We can't see the future of what's going to happen when Kareem Hunt comes in. Yes, it's going to have an effect. It's not saying that all of a sudden he's going to go from an RB1 to worthless. So he's still going to have some value the second half of the season. But I think he's the kind of player that's going to carry you through, get you 6 wins in the first 8 games, help get you those wins. And by that point, you'll have a backup plan in place. Again, another player that it would be great if you grabbed Kareem Hunt at the same time. But the only problem is you don't want to play both of those guys come week 9 after their bye week. So Nick Chubb, great player. Happy to put him at 16. I still don't know if I'm going to draft the guy. It's disheartening with Kareem Hunt coming in, but still, good guy. Good fella.
Yeah. I'll take 10 seconds to say this. Extremely talented running back. it's 100% Kareem Hunt why this guy is not a top 10 running back. I said it last week. I'll say it again. Love the player, hate the situation.
Yeah. Leonard Fournette comes in at 17. Wes, you have him at 15. I have him at 18. I'll let you take him, and I'll take the next guy.
Okay.
What do you think?
Real simply put, he's pretty much a knucklehead off the field, and last year we saw on the field when he got in a fist fight with a dude with a helmet on. He doesn't have much competition. He has like Alfred Blue behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars have Nick Foles. They're not going to throw the ball 40 times a game. Just by default, he's going to be getting a lot of opportunities. He, in limited action last year because of injuries and suspension for being a nut job, he had 10 touchdowns. So what can I say? He likes the end zone.
Yeah. If he can stay straight, I'll be happy with him. But he could have been so much better if he just put an O on the end of his first name. You know? He could have been Leonardo. But no, he had to be Leonard. It was up to him, too. He
probably could wield swords pretty well if he did that.
He probably could. He'd have been a leader instead of a follower like he is. Mark Ingram comes in at number 18.
Sensei.
Mark Ingram comes in at 18. Wes, you have him at 18. I have him at 15. What can I say? I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be a run-first offense this year. You don't bring a guy like Mark Ingram in to play second fiddle. Mark Ingram is a very talented pass-catching back as well as hard-nosed running back. So I see him being able to play both roles. They're obviously going to mix some other talent in there. You're going to have Lamar Jackson running the ball as well, but he's going to dump it off a lot. And who's he going to dump it off to? Mark Ingram. So Mark Ingram's value to me is that he could catch 60 balls this year easy, as well as get you a dozen touchdowns. Even if he doesn't break 1,000 yards on the ground, you're not going to need it with 500 yards and 60 catches. So Mark Ingram, to me, has a lot of value on a team that is really going to focus on that run attack.
I was infatuated with this guy early on. My feelings for him were red hot, almost in the inappropriate zone. But there's one thing that has cooled me off on this guy, and that guy is Justice Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I can deal with Gus Edwards being the backup, Buck Allen taking some third downs. It's, like you said, a run-first offense. He's going to get more opportunities than he would on most teams. Justice Hill is a young running back the Ravens are high on. They used one of their higher round picks. I think it was their third round pick or fourth round pick. He's one of the top running backs coming out, and they didn't draft him to sit him. I feel like he's going to play right behind Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram's still going to get the bulk of the carries, but when you have Gus Edwards, Buck Allen, and now a young Justice Hill, who I feel like when Mark Ingram leaves the Ravens in maybe 2 years, Justice Hill, it's going to be his backfield. So
yeah,
I like Justice Hill. I like Mark Ingram. I do not like Justice Hill with Mark Ingram. But at running back 18, I still think that's a good value for Mark Ingram, where I had him ranked.
Yeah, I guess I'm not as worried. I think that we have to see the offseason play out with Justice Hill, and things might change as that goes on. You know, maybe he'll turn into Ronald Jones this year, and then we don't have to worry about Justice Hill at all.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Mm-hmm. At number 19...
Wouldn't that be nice if some young guy turned out to be a dud and his career would be a failure for our fantasy football?
How dare you say that? How dare you wish that evil upon him?
You take that back.
So our next guy, number 19, Aaron Jones, who we both believe is at number 19, but another guy I think is a great talent, just in a bad situation, as you put. We are going to talk about the Packers a little bit more later. But that RBBC scares me no matter what. If he has the first and second down, great. He's going to get some production. Here you're drafting him as a middle-of-the-road RB2. Do I hate it? Not really, but I think there's other players that we have behind him that are safer plays or have higher upside. I don't think he's that guy. He's that guy that's going to get you those weak winning performances, throwing 30, 35 points in at the running back position. So that tough guy for me. I'm not super huge on Aaron Jones. I don't mind either of the talents of Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams. I just don't like the price.
Yeah, agreed. I like the player a lot. Like I said very early on, I don't like when a coach says this is going to be running back by committee. So
yeah,
that's like the equivalent of the F word to the fantasy football community.
Yes.
We hate to hear that. It's offensive. Do not say that word.
You're probably sitting there in bed at night like, I'm going to say that it's an RBBC. Yes.
When you tick me off, Caleb, I say, you are BBC, you.
And then we know what that
means. Yeah, simply put, a lot of talent. Jamal Williams, a lot of talent. You put them together, you can, in an offense, like you said, that is definitely heavy on the pass. It's just, what can you do?
Yeah.
And how everyone's remembering last year when he ended the season pretty hot. It's not going to continue that way, but
yeah,
whatever.
Kenyon Drake comes in at number 20. We both like him a lot. You have him at 21. I have him at 20. I don't need to talk a ton about him. Miami Dolphins clearly wasted his talent last year. He finished in PPRs as the RB15 on the season with very limited touches, like amazingly limited touches. He had fantastic weeks. Unfortunately, it was just up and down because he never knew how the team was going to use him. Going into this year, yes, Kalen Ballage is there, and Kalen Ballage is a very tough, hard-nosed young running back who is going to just pound it. I can see him taking a lot of goal line touches if they're going to try and just pound it in. The Dolphins, who knows what they're going to do this year. They're in rebuilding phase. The offense as a whole is, focused on rebuilding. They have a lot of talented players to mix around, but I think Kenyon Drake, they still need to see what they have. They have shown that they're not afraid to pay young talented players because they just paid Xavier Howard a tremendous amount of money as a cornerback. So I can see them really wanting their young talents to prove themselves, and so they're going to use them. And I think Kenyon Drake is going to be used a lot, and this is not a bad place. This is much worse than where he finished at last year. So if he finishes an RB20, I'm not surprised, but I think he has a lot of plus upside from here.
Yeah, I like this guy more than I thought I would. The new head coach, Flores, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has come out and said how he is totally into Drake's big play ability. You can't limit that. You got to give him every opportunity to make those explosive plays, whereas in the past, was it Adam Gase?
Yeah.
Adam Gase valued more of the Frank Gore 3-4 yards a carry. I don't want Drake in there because he'll take a loss for every time he blows up. So it was a very hairy situation. I think this plays into Drake's strengths of a coach that's willing to give him more opportunities, because we talked about this a couple episodes ago. His fantasy points per touch was up there with Saquon Barkley and Todd Gurley. So he definitely produces. It's just opportunity. Fantasy football is all about opportunity, man.
Yeah.
Because NFL is filled with, you're not making it to the NFL without talent. It's all about opportunity. And Drake, unfortunately, has been wasted the last couple years. This year is his best shot to make himself very fantasy relevant as a running back, too. So I like him a lot more than I ever did in my life. I like him more than you sometimes.
Hey, I don't blame you there.
Sorry.
I don't like me most of the time either, so.
I would rank you as a top 50.
Oh.
Whereas I have Drake as a 20.
That's not bad. Top 50 in the league. Philip Lindsay comes in at number 21. You have him at 20. I have him at 24. We've talked about him on previous episodes. Philip Lindsay is a smaller back. He went undrafted, came into the league by storm last year for the Broncos. Definitely some changing pieces on the offense over there. I do see teams figuring him out a little bit more. Being the smaller back that he is, it's not that he can't be dangerous. But he can't be the workhorse. And with Royce Freeman there, who is a talented back within his own name, I think that he's going to have to split a lot of carries. in more of a running back by committee. And I do think with Joe Flacco there, they're going to try and throw the ball more, which takes him down a little bit. And that's why I have him ranked back at the cusp of the RB2.
You know what's terrible is poor Philip Lindsay. I mean, most rookies that finish the year over 1,000 yards with 10 touchdowns and 35 catches, I mean, people are talking him up, possibly second, third round draft pick in fantasy football. This guy, we have him ranked in the 20s because of two words, basically.
Yeah.
Royce Freeman.
Yeah. It's
a little scary. They drafted Royce Freeman very high. Philip Lindsay was a nice little surprise, but like you said, a running back under 200 pounds, 5'8". How much of a beating can he take? You have Flacco there. I think Flacco is not that great at all. I still think they're going to run the ball a lot. But running back by mother-loving committee, for God's sake, can anyone just give the ball to a running back and shut up? It's definitely going to be split between him and Royce, and that's why he's in the 20s.
They do this on purpose. You have talented people that keeps the teams guessing. Bleh.
Bleh.
Derrick Henry. I said it. I'm throwing up now. Derrick Henry. I don't know why. You've said this before on the podcast. He's a beast of a man. He's giant. He has so much potential, and he still has so much potential. Did they tap into it at the end of last year, or is it a flash in the pan? Are we going to go into it this year being high on Derrick Henry? You have him at 22. I have him at 23. He is our consensus 22. So Derrick Henry, I don't know. Personally, and I'll let you get into him, I won't be mad if he's on my team, but I just don't want those running backs that I have to wrestle with whether or not I want to start them on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah. This guy is such a freaking tease, man. Like I said, it's unbelievable. Just Philip Lindsay. He's 7 inches taller than Philip Lindsay and 60 pounds heavier. This guy is a man among boys. He's just I don't understand him. Like last season, he barely averaged 3 yards a carry through like half the season. Like, you think if he just falls forward, he gets 4 yards. Yeah. I don't understand. But then, I don't know what clicks in his head. He just starts going beast mode on everybody. Not enough for me to trust him. If he ends up on my team, it's because he dropped a ridiculous amount in the draft. And he's not my number 1 running back. He's not my number 2 running back. I will be happy if he's my 3rd running back. I don't want him in my starting lineup week 1. No. Because there's just too much uncertainty. You still got to remember Dion Lewis is there. And for such a small sample size of about 4 good games out of, 2 or 3 years in the NFL, it's not enough for me to... I know a lot of people are gung-ho for the guy. Not this dude. Not at all.
Yeah, if you're playing an auction and he ends up costing you between $20 and $30 for a guy like that, there's just so much more talent beneath him that you can get for $5 or less. That I think is going to have as much.
A nickel.
I was gonna say something, but I was like, family show. Dang it. Chris Carson comes in at number 23. You have him at 23. I have him at 22. I honestly think I would have Chris Carson higher if it wasn't for the other guy behind him, whose name is
Alexander.
Yeah, the guy whose name
Rashad Penny.
Thank you. You're just letting me hang there. You know what's happening. You know that I have the mind of a 1,000-year-old man.
Yeah, and I'm like one of those sick kids who like burn ants with microscopes. I just like to watch you squirm, get a sick thrill out of it.
So because you get such a sick thrill, listen, I really like Chris Carson. In the past couple of years, his first season coming in, he was really good when he played. Of course, he got injured. Last season, it just seems like he runs with no regard for anything, not his body, nothing else. He just wants to have success and blast through people. And so that's what he does, and so he tends to get injured. But, yes, Rashad Penny could come in this year much leaner than he was last year. They drafted him very high. So Rashad Penny is just waiting for his turn to go. So Chris Carson could lose a lot of touches very early to Rashad Penny. So I do have some fears, but Chris Carson is a really good running back, and they are a run-heavy offense. So I do like him. Even, we still have him as an RB2 here. And I think he could finish as an RB2. They could have two successful running backs in that backfield.
Yeah, Chris Carson, definitely good running back. I mean, last year was only his second year. This guy's really young still. He's 24 years old. Doug Baldwin retiring. I feel like they're going to stay conservative. By conservative, I mean running the ball just as much as they did last year, which was a lot. The guy had 250 carries. The problem was Rashad Penny was not some guy that walked on as an undrafted free agent. He wasn't a fifth-round pick. He was someone they drafted with their first-round pick. So they're going to do everything they can to make him successful. So unfortunately for Chris Carson, it's going to be a 50-50 split, I believe, at best. I feel like if Rashad Penny and Chris Carson have the same amount of talent and the same amount of production, Rashad Penny's going to get the benefit of the doubt because they spent a first-round pick on the guy. Chris Carson was a seventh-round pick. Yep. So I like Chris Carson. I like him especially early on in the season, but I know Rashad Penny came on last year. I think he comes on even earlier this year, maybe week 3 or 4. And like you said, Rashad Penny come in a little better physically, better shape. Unfortunately, I think Chris Carson might be a good running back number 2 on his team.
Yeah, could change things. So we'll take these last two together, running short on a little bit of time here, but they're also on the same team. Sony Michel comes in at number 24 and James White at 25. Surprisingly, you actually had White ranked as 24 and Michel above him at 25.
That's right.
I have Michel at 21 and James White at 29. So what do you want to talk about these two players, huh?
Very simple. It's New England's backfield. You got a lot of talent in that backfield. And you made it even worse, Belichick. If you don't torment me during the regular season with real football, you torment me in fantasy by drafting Damian Harris.
Yeah.
One of the best running backs in the draft. You throw him into the mix with Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, James White. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, it makes
Genius move for football. Sucks for fantasy. The only reason I have James White ranked ahead of Sony Michel is Tom Brady just throws to him nonstop.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And when it comes to time, if it comes down to those two players or, we have Darius Geis right behind him, Tariq Cohen, Lamar Miller, Tevin Coleman, Jordan Howard. There's a couple of those guys I'm probably going to end up taking over the Patriots backfield. I would like to actually look back, do a little research, and see how many top 10 running backs the Patriots teams have produced in recent years, just to see, how they pan out. So that's it. We're going to finish there with the running back rankings. Next week, we're going to jump into wide receivers. Look forward to that because I'm going to mix it up a little bit. That's all.
That's mix
it up. Woo! We've gone on long enough. Now we're going on to team valuations. Make this as brief as we can. And this week, we're going to start with the Packers. And we're going to start with them because we have a question that I never got to come in from Instagram from Joshua GB90, who is a big Packers fan. And he asked specifically, what do you think the Packers are going to do this season? Who is going to be a stud for fantasy? And do you think Jordy Nelson and Rodgers reunion is possible? I'd like to hear your opinion on the show. First of all, I mean, if a wide receiver goes down, something like that, I could see Jordy Nelson, getting a phone call and say, hey, you want to come out of retirement and come play for us? Because I think that's what he wants. He wants them to call him and ask. But other than that, I don't see it happening. As for the Packers themselves, do you want to take Packers up front or do you want to take Lions?
I don't care. I really don't, because I'm prepared for both, buddy.
Oh, well, I'll just mention some of the basics. One of the main things I want to mention about the Packers is Nathaniel Hackett, their new offensive coordinator. As we've mentioned many times, he loves nothing more than to get his giblets done with an RBBC. And that's probably more graphic sounding than me saying the actual thing.
Just say the whole explicit thing next time.
I should, yeah. So
it really arouses the heck out of him to split carries with running back.
So he spent the last 4 seasons in Jacksonville as a quarterback's coach. Why that translated over to being the Packers offensive coordinator, can't say for sure, because there were some up and down times for Blake Bortles for sure. But then he was the offensive coordinator for a short period of time, and he did guide them to have a top 10 NFL points per game in 2017. Again, still going to recency. He likes an RBBC. He likes quarterbacks. So it's going to likely be a pass-heavy team again. They just so happen to have a good quarterback in Aaron Rodgers and arguably one of the best wide receivers in the league in Davante Adams, along with a lot of other pieces. So his incoming here can mean a lot to me for the passing game, not so much the running game. In their depth chart, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. They have a couple of ancillary, third backs, Dexter Williams, Capri Bibbs. They do have a fullback, which is nice for goal line work. They're a very not spoken of very much. Of course, I mentioned Davante Adams. They also have Geronimo Allison, which is not talked about a lot, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about him. They also have some young guys in Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Equanimous St. Brown, Jake Kumaro. So they have some talented receivers. Their tight ends, they drafted Jace Sternberger. They still have Jimmy Graham there. They have Mercedes Lewis on the team. So they have some talent at tight end as well. Again, to me, all translates to passing game, passing game, passing game. And I'll hand it off to you.
Yes, very good, Caleb. I will just briefly go over what you said, sort of, except Matt LaFleur. He has a fresh, new, exciting scheme, which was what was Aaron Rodgers was looking for. One of his main things against McCarthy was predictability. It was just caveman offense, very predictable. He hated that. So you got LaFleur in there that makes Aaron Rodgers very happy, and this all starts and stops with Aaron Rodgers. The thing I think is interesting is Matt LaFleur is going to try and do something no Packers coach has ever done, and that's take the team to the playoffs their first year, which I thought was interesting because you think of all the great coaches they've had. McCarthy, Holmgren, Lombardi, all those guys, their first year as a Packers head coach couldn't take their team to the playoffs. Just a little nugget for you, Caleb. Anyway,
what do you think? We'll talk about that after.
Yes. So, like you said, Allison, healthy. The 2 rookies last year, Scantling and St. Brown, they're more seasoned, more comfortable with Rodgers. And like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, Rodgers and those 2 rookies had some tension between them because they didn't know if they should listen to Rodgers or the head coach, McCarthy. All that drama crap is out the window now. Like you said, rushing game, not really a top priority. They were last in rushing attempts last year, and I don't think it's going to get much better. And when we go over these teams, it isn't 100% fantasy-oriented, so I will say the reason I think the Packers are going to have a huge improvement this year is their concentration on improving that defense. Free agency, Zadarius Smith from the Ravens, Preston Smith from the Redskins, Adrian Amos, the safety from Chicago. 3 humongous signings. Last year's draft, they drafted 2 great cornerbacks in Alexander, Josh Jackson. This year, 2 first-round picks, both of them going to the defense. Rashawn Gary, who has a ton of talent. He could be an elite pass rusher, even though he didn't have the stats to back it up in college. Very good athlete. A couple years maybe he'll be an elite pass rusher, but very good pick. Darnell Savage could start from day 1 at safety. This defense, Aaron Rodgers is he's going to be Hall of Famer. never really had a historic defense, a really good defense that you could rely on. It was never winning games 13-10. It was you got to score 40 points to win the game. So I think this defense, the concentration they've put, or the effort they've made to improve that defense is going to be huge. And you went over some of the other draft picks about Jace Sternberger. He could be their number 1 tight end next year. Very good tight end. They got him for a steal in the draft. So, yeah, the Packers, I'm very impressed with everything they've done the last 2 years. Now, like always, when we go over these teams, I give you a watch and an avoid. The avoid's going to be very brief. Aaron Jones, and we've hammered this poor guy about 3 times already on the podcast, so I'm not going to say any more why. We're really picking on him. We're just being bullies right now. Just being total jerks. Like, if he'd walk by me, I'd knock his books out of his hand and say, nerd!
What did I do?
You were a nerd. No. So the guy I said watch is, ironically, what you brought up a couple minutes ago, Geronimo Allison. Very high on this guy, man.
Giggity.
He's the 55th ranked receiver, 147th ranked fantasy player. This guy, before he went down, was averaging 60 yards a game on 4 catches and about a touchdown every other game, which aren't mind-blowing, but he was really starting to get a rapport with Aaron Rodgers, which Aaron Rodgers is like a freaking tiger, man. Like, if you can somehow gain the trust of that guy, that's humongous. But chances are you're not going to.
Yeah.
The fact when Randall Cobb was out, Aaron Rodgers even came out and praised Geronimo Allison, and he has earned Aaron Rodgers' trust. That's huge. So he's going to be the number 2 on a high-powered offense. Matt LaFleur is going to put him in the slot, and LaFleur's last 2 slot receivers were Mohamed Sanu with the Falcons, and he had a big year when he was there, and Cooper Kupp last year with the Rams. Both guys were utilized very well in the slot, similar size, very similar speed. I could see Geronimo. I could have Jimamina having a really good year. I'm talking 1,000 yards, 6-7 touchdowns. Really like that guy. So That's the guy I would really concentrate. And you can get him for a bargain, man. Like, such low risk,
absolutely
high reward.
Yeah, I really, 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 really like that pick because Aaron Rodgers can sustain 2 wide receiver ones. He really can. And if they're both healthy, and Devontae Adams he's going to get his, but he's going to take a lot of attention, leaving Allison to just slurp up the droppings. Yeah.
He's going to get his slurpy straw out and just go on the targets.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, so...
And I will say this. It's like when I said it all starts and ends with Aaron Rodgers. He goes back to throwing for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Devontae Adams isn't catching 30 touchdowns and 2,000 yards. It's got to go somewhere, and I think Allison's going to be the benefactor of that. So
yeah, absolutely. So,
and I gotta commend you real quick, Caleb. The Jordy Nelson was spot on. I don't think he'll be signed at all unless major injury hits that receiving core. So
yeah,
well done.
That's the only thing. So thanks for the question. Overall, for the team, yes, you can draft the quarterback. Obviously, you have wide receiver 1 on the team you can draft. You can have a wide receiver 2, a possible wide receiver 1 upside that you can draft. You have a bunch of wide receiver 3s you can grab, and a bunch of tight ends. Running back core is going to be tough. Guys you can still have on your team, but overall, a great offense, and so you can have a lot of faith in that team. The over-under, by the way, what are you taking on the Packers as they are predicted to win 9 games?
I'm definitely taking the over on this. They have the 14th easiest schedule, which, kind of middle of the road, but I just think the coaching changes, and I am so aroused about this. I can't make this a bigger deal than what I am already. This defense is going to be formidable this year, and you've always had that offense. Now you're going to have a great defense. I think they, 11, 12 wins. Whatever, no big deal. Just making some hot takes.
I'll take the over as well. I'm not going to predict how many wins, but I'll take the over on the 9. I wouldn't be surprised if they won only 9, but I got to pick one, so I'm going to take the over.
Well, yeah, these over-unders, man, they are pretty much spot on.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes it hard.
We might as well not even make any guesses. Next up, we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, second-year coach in Matt Patricia. All of his time before the Lions was with the Patriots. Unfortunately, we know that the Patriots coaching tree is not very successful unless they're on the Patriots. Can he turn it around this year? A tough year last year. The guy you mentioned earlier, I think, is the most important part, not only for us in fantasy, but for the team, and Darrell Bevell. He came in after 18 seasons in the NFL, 12 as a coordinator. He was with the Seattle Seahawks from 2011 to 2017, 5 playoff appearances, 3 NFC West championships, 2 NFC conference titles, and a Super Bowl championship. He has good experience at coaching good offenses. And yes, again, to Kerryon Johnson's benefit, in his tenure with the Seahawks totaled 14,773 yards, which is the second most in the NFL in that span, which is tremendous for their running back, averages. During that that range at the same time, the Seahawks, Russell Wilson had a combined passer rating of 95.7. So he creates a good offense. He's very good for that team, for the pieces that they have in place. Last year, Matt Stafford unfortunately had a very poor season. He lost a lot of pieces to injuries and to issues. But Matt Stafford is still the quarterback of the team. You have Kerryon Johnson as the number 1. C.J. Anderson came in this year, likely to take some time. Zach Zenner and Theo Riddick are still there in the backfield. At wide receiver, you have Kenny Galladay as your number 1 with Marvin Jones there. Marvin Jones is starting to age, but they brought a Danny Amendola in. A large wide receiver core trying to bolster and give some help to Matthew Stafford. As for the tight ends, well, they drafted, again, arguably the number 1 tight end prospect, probably for a long time, in T.J. Hockenson. They also got Jesse James, which I think is a very undervalued play. And I would have valued him a lot more if they hadn't drafted T.J. Hockenson. But Jesse James has a lot more experience. He comes in to situations where if TJ is having a little bit of a learning curve issue, that he can be very valuable. They're trying to improve on their offensive line, trying to make some moves there. But overall, definitely some pieces, not the kind of production that you're going to see out of the Packers offense, but they've made a lot of steps in the right direction.
Yeah. Matt Patricia, first year was rough. It was pretty public. He lost the locker room. Players questioned him. He kind of wanted to walk in there and be Belichick immediately, and you can't do that, They did have a good free agent signing in Trey Flowers to help that defense. And Matt Patricia is defensive-minded, and it showed. 2017, they were 21st in points allowed, 27th in yards allowed. Last year, 16th in points allowed, and 10th in yards allowed. So, as much as a rough season as it was, the defense was making some decent strides. They signed C.J. Anderson, who's going to back up Kerryon Johnson very effectively like he did in Los Angeles. That T.J. Hockenson, man, he's best tight end in the draft, hands down, and he is not Eric Ebron. Do not compare the two. I swear to God, if you compare the two, it'll displease me. This guy, Eric Ebron, was an athletic tight end who had a hard time catching the ball.
Yeah.
This guy is the best blocking tight end in the draft. Great receiver. He had a 2% drop rate, which was the lowest of tight ends with 50 targets in college. And after that, they followed it up with 4 straight defensive picks. So obviously still looking to hammer that defense and solidify it in the secondary with pass rush. So yeah, I think they're trying to slowly evolve. The thing that annoys me with Belichick's coaching tree is nobody wants to make a name for themselves. They just want to copy Belichick, which I understand because he's really good. But, he's just doing what Belichick does.
Absolutely.
He's building up that defense, and he is making running game a priority, which scares me if you want Matt Stafford in fantasy. I don't think he's going to be that exciting, especially where this whole team's going. But they're making some good some good moves to for this rebuild to sort of take hold. So yeah, I like where the team's going. Again, my watch and avoid. Watch Kerryon Johnson. I already told you a million things about him. Blah blah blah. Awesome. Blah blah blah. Avoid Kenny Galladay.
Oh, I was curious.
Yes, I know you're curious. Why? I got a few reasons why. They're not hardcore hit you in the face with some stats, but just some gut feelings. I mean, he had some dud games with when Golden Tate was traded and Marvin Jones got hurt. You know, he was given the full reins in that receiving core. I mean, he had some duds. Like against Arizona, he had 2 catches for 5 yards. He had a catch for 12 yards against Seattle. He had some duds of games that you don't expect. With this, we talked about the offensive coordinator, the head coach. They are not pressing to air the ball out more. They are making it so it's a grinding, running offense. They're investing in these tight ends. They drafted 2 tight ends, obviously, with their first-round pick. They signed Jesse James. You could see more 2 tight end sets. They are looking not to become a West Coast offense, throw it 40, 50 times a game. They're looking for ground and pound with some tight end action. Kenny Galladay, he's going to be great. He's going to have a good year, probably 1,000 yards, but he's not going to be giving you number 1 wide receiver production like some people kind of expect. So I'd avoid him from where he's being taken.
Yeah, I'm afraid of him being the number 1. I think he had a lot more success as a 2 or 3 on the team. He's a big target, so he's going to get his. We'll see if Matt Stafford can hang in there this year. But so again, on the team, Matt Stafford as a quarterback, you're likely not taking him too early. Kind of have to see how this year plays out for him. Kerryon Johnson is easily draftable. Couple of players in the passing game, but not a ton of fantasy value on the offensive side. It's something you're just going to want to watch and pick up guys off the waivers as things go on. Over under on the team is 6.5. And personally, I'm actually taking the under. I think they get 6 wins.
Yeah, I'm taking the under too. It's kind of exciting when we agree. Yeah, I'm taking the under. I think they're headed in the right direction. I don't think this is going to be a 7-9 season. I do think they're laying a good foundation on that team, but I just don't think they're going to reap the benefits this year.
No. That's it. So that's it for our 2 teams. Next week, we're going to head to the South, but we're going to head to the AFC South. We're going to look at the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. See how
you're all over the place. You're not even staying in the same conference.
I'm not.
He's gone rogue.
I don't think that anybody cares. I almost went with the AFC North, but I was like, well, I don't think Wes is quite prepared to take on the Steelers yet.
I'm a very structured guy. I'm like, we'll do NFC North, South, East, West, go to the AFC, same, and you're like, man, let's check out the Western Conference of the NBA Finals.
It's very exciting. I'm very excited for that if we want to do that next week.
That was cool. Titans and Jags. That'll be a good one.
Titans and Jags. I really want to talk about some teams that I really don't like any players on, and that's 2 of the teams that I'm like, I really need to talk myself into more of these players. Or maybe I don't. Gotcha. Maybe I need to talk myself out of them.
We'll do a lot of talking regardless.
That's it for the show. Hey, congratulations. We made it our longest episode yet.
God, we're trying to keep it under an hour. And whatever.
I don't know if we've done it one time. We're going to figure it out.
Haven't.
We're going to get it together. And you know what? No, we're not. Forget it. Hey, no. But thanks for talking. Thanks for shooting some blanks with us. Letting us finish our running back rankings.
Shooting some blanks with us.
And evaluating some
I
teams.
hope we excited you guys that much. Now, let me hit you with a serious final thought. Caleb, when you get dirt on your face, what do you do?
I wash it off.
When you get dirt on your hands, what do you do?
I wash it off, or I rub it on my face.
When you take a poop, what do you do?
Oh, I wipe.
You use a piece of paper.
That's true.
There's a little PSA, a little more you know. Pro bidet message right now. I was doing a lot of thinking about that today, and I just... It was hard for me to wrap my head around why we use water to clean everything other than one of the dirtiest areas on us.
It's very funny you say that. I actually heard that conversation last week in a podcast, and I thought to myself, I wonder how much a bidet costs. And turns out you can get them like $30 on Amazon.
Yeah, you can just use an adapter right off your water line.
Yeah, I might try it.
So it's a win-win. A little more clean, maybe a bit of a thrill.
We could try it together.
Your BMs a little more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be cold
I think we
water.
both could fit on the toilet.
There you go. Yeah, we'll try it. Hey, on that note, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Buy a bidet. Bye.
Yeah, and look us up on social media and stuff, or if you don't, then spray your butthole with the bidet.
Yes. Send us questions if you have any, and if you don't, spray your butthole with lava.
Okay. I'll stop it right there.